This is a political caricature called Gargantua made by Daumier in 1831. The giant monster was King Louis Philippe, and the poor people were climbing ramps to feed him, while politicians around him benefited from corruption. Because of this, the artist was arrested and imprisoned for several months. Again, this is the famous political satire Animal Farm by George Orwell, where in the beginning the animal overthrow the human hoping for equality, but the pigs slowly take control and become corrupt ruler themselves. A famous line from this book is all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. This book was also banned in Soviet Union and several communist countries for years. That's the power of art. To understand better, let's deep dive into the history of art. In 2017, archaeologists discovered a painting of a wild pig in Indonesian cave. Further research found that the painting is at least 45,500 years old, making it one of the oldest known artwork in the world. If we talk about literature, the Epic of Gilgamesh, which means the heroic history of King Gilgamesh, is one of the oldest known literary work in human history. A major development in the timeline of art is the invention of paper in China. Before that, writing was done on different kind of materials. Like in ancient Mesopotamia, they used clay tablets. In Egypt, they use a kind of paper made from reeds. In India, they use palm leaves. On these material, it was not only hard to write, but it was also a headache to preserve them. Then in 1895, two French brothers, Auguste and Louis Lumiere, held the first public paid film screening in Paris. Even though they were simple shots like workers leaving a factory and the arrival of train, this was the birth of cinema, currently the dominant art form in the world. Then in August 1991, the World Wide Web was introduced to the general public, bringing the internet into homes and making it much easier for everyone to find and consume art. But if we observe the timeline, we notice that humans have craved for art from hunter-gatherers to corporate employees. There is always some form of art. But why? A main reason is our ability to recognize patterns. Take a good look at these pictures. What do you see? A face, a bird, an eye. So our brains are wired to recognize patterns because evolutionary it helped us survive, like spotting dangers or remembering seasons. Now we take that same instinct and apply it to art, stories, music. Anything that give us a sense of order or emotional truth. So every time we see an art piece or a story, we try to find our own meaning. We try to compare it with our own life. Also, art affect our hormones. A study investigated the impact of visual art making on the cortisol level of 29 healthy adults. Participants provided saliva samples before and after 45 minutes of art making. And the result indicated that art making resulted in statistically significant lowering of cortisol levels. In another study, researchers found that level of stress hormone cortisol fell by on an average of 22% among those viewing the original art. Another ridiculous reason is that human can lie. As in Sapiens Noah Harari said that only Homo sapiens can speak about things that don't really exist. And because of that ability, human can cooperate flexibly in large numbers. That's why we read and believe in stories. This is a famous painting called The 3rd of May 1808 by Francisco Goya. It shows Spanish civilians being executed by French troops during Napoleon occupation of Spain. Art was never created merely to entertain or educate. It has sparked revolutions, challenged empires, and given ordinary people the courage to question those in power. How the Vande Mataram song from Anand Math inspired Indians in the freedom movement. How Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit powerfully captured the suffering and racial violence endured by black Americans. How R.K. Laxman and Shankar Pillai's artwork criticized Indian politicians. Even the Prime Minister said, "Don't spare me, Shankar." How many artists, writers, poets have been banned, punished, or killed because they question authority. And here a question arises that why are elites afraid of art? So in 1937, the Degenerate Art Exhibition was organized by Adolf Hitler and Nazi Party. More than 15,000 artworks from German museum were removed, and a few of these were put on display in exhibition. The goal was not to celebrate the artworks but to ridicule them, convince the public that they were bad, ugly, and harmful. Hitler had a background in painting and understood the influence of art. That's why he suppressed art that challenged his ideology. Because art shows what authority wants us to forget. Art can show you the real, the raw, the truth. There is a short satire called Viklang Rajniti. In the story, there is a man whose leg get fractured and people from two different political parties approach him trying to gain some benefit from his situation. Today, if we directly criticize a political party, we could get into a lot of trouble, but through art we can still do such things. And always remember, when art and artists are attacked, democracy is at risk. In 1950, a story called Cold Flesh, originally Thanda Gosht, was published in a Pakistani literary magazine. In Thanda Gosht, a Sikh man named Ishar Singh confesses to abducting a girl during the partition riot, only to discover she was already dead when he tried to assault her. Because of its boldness and brutal honesty, Saadat Hassan Manto was sentenced to 3 months in prison and fined 300 rupees. This is where the famous line by Manto comes from: "Who am I to remove the clothes of society which itself is naked?" In the late 1920s, a book called Lady Chatterley's Lover was published. It's about a relationship between an upper class woman and a working class man, and because of how openly it talks about sex, it was banned. So, society create a balloon of what is right, what is wrong, what should be hidden, what should be exposed, and an artist come along and just. A famous line from one of my favorite movie, Dead Poets Society, is that
we don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race, and the human race is filled with passion.
Art is always everywhere present. The poor have their art, the rich have their art, the revolution have art, war has art, peace has art. Kings have art, democracy has art. To praise someone, there's art. To criticize someone, there's art. You open your eyes, there is art. You close your eyes, there is art.
Because what is this? What is this earth without art? Just a rock.